Welcome to the Worldview Media channel again. I'm here with Samuel Chiziketti.
Yep.
And we are up to Rule 3, Chapter 3, in Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. Chapter 3, make friends with people who want the best for you.
Yeah.
The chapter begins by Jordan Peterson talking about his upbringing in a remote rural community in Canada where he had limited options in terms of the friendships, and there was, in that particular remote community, there wasn't a lot to do, and so there was all kinds of self-destructive behaviour. Young people getting up to trouble and drinking too much and all that kind of thing. And so he uses that as the basis upon which to say that, you know, some friendships can be good for you and some friendships can be harmful for you. And some friendships, some relationships are actually very toxic. So I should warn you that this chapter could end up, this discussion could end up being like a therapy session for me, because I've.
But you mean I'm being a bad friend? That's probably.
No. I've unfortunately had a few situations where with relationships I got into, business relationships and ministry relationships, they even proved to be very, very toxic. And so I might bring a few of those up without naming names later, just to illustrate some of those principles. But it's clear to me that, and I think God has used circumstances in my life to really try and teach me. I'm not sure how good I am at learning the lesson, but to try and teach me that you have to be selective about relationships, and just because you have a common goal with a group of people doesn't necessarily mean that those relationships are ultimately going to be good for you. So, what are your thoughts about the chapter?
I find it quite interesting. I mean, since we've started this conversation, just 2 blocks sit around the table and have a conversation about the book that has been quite talked about quite a lot in recent times. I found this book quite enriching, and I have been enjoying Jordan Peterson's thinking process. I found that in my reading, I'm looking like chapter 1, rule 1, rule 2, and rule 3. These rules are building upon each other, and so the first one is then stand up straight and shoulder back and recognize that you have a place in the world. There's something meaningful to you, and so you've got to start there. And the second one, recognize that there is a bit of a problem in the human heart, and therefore take responsibility. Treat yourself like somebody who you would like to take care of, right? So take responsibility and so on and so forth. And the third one here, which says, choose who you hang out with. I think these things, recognize you're important, take responsibility, choose who you hang out with. So it seems like they're basically building up. And what I find interesting about this particular chapter is how it starts it. This is that personal testimony. The Jordan Peterson, the well-acclaimed academic, he's one of the brightest minds, they would say, for this particular period of time, as an academic. It tells you where he started from. It's the most unlikely place where you can find a mind like that. To me, it makes the point that where you start from does not necessarily determine what you're going to end up or what you're going to become. You could start in a situation like Jordan Peterson started, in Canada, in a rural community where when he describes the kind of cold, how cars couldn't start, they found they cut frozen on the concrete.
And drunks being found frozen solid on in
It's just
dumpsters.
incredible.
Yeah.
And so, starting from a place like that, could you imagine going back from the last chapter we talked about, where people have got the tendency to blame things out there for their misfortune? Oh, this happened, because the world owes me. You could imagine somebody like that, drink, get drunk, just get wasted, and then go, well, look, you don't know where I was born, how it was like. And so, not blaming one's environment.
You say that from a unique perspective too.
I do.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
I do. My unique experience is pretty much, he was in a cold Canada, I was in a hot Congo, so it's a bit two different places.
Yeah.
But can you imagine, I used to walk to school, 15 Ks one way. That's just to go to school.
Yeah.
And so go up the hill, down the hill, across the road. No bus, no car to drive, no bicycles. No sort of a good network of roads with, footpaths and, and so, and you come home, there's no food. And so you could start anywhere, like he started. But the decisions you make along the way, this is so important.
Well, you can allow the circumstances you are born into to defeat you, I guess, or to shape you and hone your convictions.
I don't mean to say that there are not these environmental factors don't have an input. They do. But the thing is, ultimately, you can have the destination of what we end up with. You could have somebody who was born in a wealthiest environment with everything that opens and shuts, just go to waste as much. It's a matter of personal decisions as you respond to this environment. So that's the first thing I get. The second thing I get, and which is for us, I always want to make this point, especially for the believers. For me as a believer, I have the Bible, which is the book of wisdom, that if I actually decided to, I know the other person, he uses it, and he talks about Christ, we've talked about Adam and Eve and so on and so forth. So I'm intrigued that he uses the Bible to make this point. And I have access to the book. I can make decisions accordingly. And so the Christians in general, and non-Christians, my wife Melissa just put a post on Facebook that was quite striking. She said, any intelligent person, if a person who's just intelligent or considers them to be intelligent, should be able to commit to studying the Bible. Why? Even for the simple fact that this is the most sold, the most read book in the world.
Yes.
Okay? About, 3.5 billion of these have been issued and read across the world.
Yeah.
And the next book, in competition is probably only less than 10%.
Yeah.
30 million or 40, I don't know, something like that. 30 million copies. So if you want to find, like we're talking about Jordan Peterson book, I don't know if it's probably sold 1 million or 2. And this is the book is making, but the Bible has been sold 3.2 billion.
Yeah. On that point, maybe to digress a bit, but to build on your point, it always baffles me when I meet Christians who express discontent with the quality of teaching in their church.
Yes.
Some people, I've heard people say over the years, I'm going to a different church, we're just not getting fed there,
Right.
And I'm thinking, what are you? Are you a baby that you need to be fed? Because if you're literate and you have a Bible, you have more access, immediate access to God's truth than any other people in history. Because, we have, you see stories about the church in China that's growing rapidly, and they don't have access to Bibles.
No.
They borrow Bibles and they share fragments and they memorize it.
Memorize it.
And so, I want to get fed. That never was.
Oh, it is so bad. Because he says, I want to get
Read
fed.
the book.
If you're a baby, if you want to, you can't be both. If you're a baby, you sit there and get just dished to you whatever is there. That's what, like, I've got kids, you've got kids.
Yeah.
The kids don't get the choices of what mom's cooking, especially if you're a baby, just to get fed what is there, right?
Yeah.
So you can't be wanting to be a baby and then move church. Oh, we're not being fed there. What kind of baby does get to choose what kind of food you're going to be fed? There are other reasons why people live there. If you know the quality of the food is bad, how did you know the quality of the food is bad? If you can't read scripture yourself. So not only do we have scripture itself, we have all the necessary tools for hermeneutic right here. Yeah. You've got all the tools for exegetical analysis. We live in the information age.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that is the worst excuse you can. It's basically, some people might be shocked. I call that just simply spiritual and intellectual laziness. You can find it, even the person who thinks that an intellectual right now here in our culture who can't read the Bible, they're just intellectually lazy. Because you can read this thing and don't start being biased. Don't start, I'm against it. Because I know some churches did wrong things. Well, no, just go, okay, I want to read this, and if the tough questions, has no one ever thought about the questions that I have? This is one of the things that we've probably you've got into one of my passions. One of the things that has been so bad among the atheists and the agnostics. The agnostics shouldn't even say anything because they said, I don't know. Okay. The atheists, they assume that whether it's Bible contradictions or the things that they think that, like no Christians over the age for 2,000 years has ever thought about it. Yeah. Like, if you think there are contradictions, can't you go and read the other Christians who have dealt with this? If you think there are things that are inconsistent, is the God of Old Testament evil? So there's a lot of academic writings, popular writings by Christian philosophers for centuries. Yeah. So most people are intellectually lazy and therefore they can't do it. So getting back to Jordan Peterson.
Yes, we digress. Yes. It deserves another episode.
It does. Now, so when you look at it, Peterson tells the story of where he comes from. And I think that is the best place to start. Because it's very easy to meet somebody like he is now and to think, there are two ways. He was lucky, maybe he had wealthy parents. People who are used to finding external factors to justify the misfortune or the success of others will try to do that. So you find that no, he made a set of decisions to leave the environment where it was. But the second point I got is quite this one. When you are in a place where people don't take responsibility, don't construct what is meaningful to do, they will go to West. See what he's saying, like the place was, okay, there's not much to do here.
Without a vision, the people perish.
Yeah, exactly. So the drinking, like sort of impromptu parties, impromptu parties of teenagers, just going West. And that's where it starts from. And then when he moves from there to a big city, it starts to notice the difference between his friends who stayed there and him as he moved. But it was just a move, so it's okay to change the environment. If the environment within which you are doesn't offer you all the necessary possibilities, and based on the vision of what you want to become, it's okay to change your environment. But you can change the environment while still carrying that environment in. So in other words, you can change it physically. But they say it in this way. I can say it because somebody says it, it might sound racist. You can get a monkey out of the bush without getting the bush out of the monkey. That's a statement. We say that in Africa all the time. Right. So, which means when he got out, he had some of his friends that had gotten out too, but they had gone and found the kind of same type of friends as a friend in the old environment. So
and then he goes on to explore the reasons why people do that. And well, here's a quote. He says, sometimes when people have a low opinion of their own worth, or perhaps when they refuse responsibility for their lives, they choose a new acquaintance of precisely the type who proved troublesome in the past. Such people don't believe that they deserve any better.
Now, think about, I look at it from this, because we work with people who are disadvantaged. And, you know, this, the first thing that you analyze psychologically is to try to see whether this person wants pity or they want to be gotten out of there. What happens very often is people who have issues find other people who have the same kind of issues to then console themselves that I'm not alone in this. We are many.
So they find a comfortable dark hole to hide in.
Yes.
And it may be damp and it might be smelly and it might be, you know, offer no hope, but at least it's familiar.
Yeah.
And they don't have to go through any uncomfortable growth process.
Yeah.
To get out of that and face the scary world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People look for somebody who says, "Oh, I really understand you. I know what it is like to be in this situation." Here is what I think, and reasonably so. I don't want to hear those words from someone who's still in that issue. I want to hear those words from somebody who says, "Oh, I've been in that issue before. I know what it is like. This is what I did. This is the kind of help I sought out. This is the kind of things I went through to try to get out of there."
Yes.
Now, the person who's looking for pity, once they come across somebody who says, "I used to be there and now I'm out here," they think, "Oh, I can't be with you because I'm going to feel inadequate. Therefore, I'd rather run away from you because you have progressed than I have." Instead of going, "Okay, well, you've progressed. I want to know, what did you do? I want to get out of here." So the first thing is to find out, does the person want to get out of here? So people cuddle together, you know, and first, when you get somebody who understands you, it's nice. But I don't need somebody to understand me. I want somebody to get me out of where I am. Yeah. And if I don't like where I am, what is the point of getting together with a whole bunch of people who we can share the same experience? We can tell ourselves how bad things are.
Well, the good thing about being in pastoral ministry, as I have been in the past too, is that you meet all kinds of different people, you know. And it's evident to me that you know, some people are probably never going to change, even if you bent over backwards to help, even if you gave them $1 million. A year from now, they'd be back in the same situation. But some people come to pastors looking for validation. They don't just want sympathy, and they want to be affirmed. And I think sometimes they even want you to fail at helping them so that they can confirm that they have their own beliefs confirmed that there's no reason to hope. There's no reason to change. If he couldn't help me, then you know.
Oh, this is so true. You've nailed it there. Do that,
There was a bit in this book that I have to admit I found hard to chew on. I almost choked on trying to swallow it, but I find myself thinking, does Jordan Peterson understand compassion at all? And I read on, and you know what he does, and I'll elaborate on this a little bit later if I get time. But he brutally unmasks the self-serving motives of people who engage in acts of compassion.
Yes.
And I found that confronting because I've always been aware that one of the most dangerous sort of activities to engage in is public virtue. Yeah. Public virtue comes with all kinds of snares. All manner of snares, actually. That, for a start, you're sort of and ministers of the gospel are, you know, front and center to that problem because there is this sort of cultural belief, and it's not totally unfounded, is that if you're a minister of the gospel, you have to be above reproach and you have to be sort of this pinnacle of virtue. And but that's their big shoes to fit. And
very big shoes.
One of the during my period in pastoral ministry, well, the first thing that I noticed is that people stop relating to you like a normal human being.
Yeah.
For a start, you get this elevated position of honor, and you get respect that you're not entitled to, respect that you haven't yet earned.
Mm-hmm.
People will defer to you on the basis of your position or your title or whatever, and that feels unnatural. To be honest, that sits uncomfortably with me. And the other thing is, amongst the people who are disgruntled and have cause to be cynical and disappointed, you become the target for all of their discontent, and you get subjected to all these unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
And I liken it to being like an idol, a statue in a public square. You know, you're on this pedestal, and people are looking up to you. And then people who don't like idols will come along and topple you over.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So you're never, when you're in that position, you're never being treated normally. You're either being treated much better than you deserve, or you're being treated much worse than you deserve. And you're never treated.
That's, now you're asking me to quit this profession that I'm in. Like, this is, yeah. No, but I get,
that's the occupational hazard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But more than that, which is getting back to the point I intended to make, you there are in this position, which is you're supposed to be a pinnacle of virtue, and internally, you know you're not completely a pinnacle of virtue. You're trying to be virtuous. You're trying to do the things that God's calling you to do, but all humans stumble in various ways, and so the worst thing you can do, and I think I've seen a lot of Christian leaders do this, is believe their own PR. You know, that you know, when they get the praise and accolades of people, they actually begin to believe they deserve it, which is you know, pride becomes before a fall.
Right. Yeah. The idea that the person who's a public figure in a ministry or just simply, you know, any other let's say profession, the idea that they are a pinnacle of virtue is itself demonstrably false. Why does anyone hold that idea? Very often I watch it. It's basically like this beast that is being fed from both sides. People start by holding those people who are public figures in this pinnacle of virtue type of position. And those people who are public figures, instead of denying that and telling people what the truth is,
they feed on it.
Yeah, they feed on it. So
it becomes a codependent relationship.
Exactly. So the first step is that, like, think about it. I'll come to ministry in a moment, and then I'll establish the fourth point. Think about the celebrities. Yeah. So, you know, these football players, because they have won few games, kicking the ball, they're skilled and gifted at football, suddenly society picks them up, and now they are, you know, paraded as the pinnacle of wisdom, character, what it is like to be an example for all our young people, and everybody looking up to them. Yeah. And so what happens suddenly now, they're going to go, okay, if I'm not that, then society will drop me. So out of the fear of being dropped, so they now start to basically try to live as though they were this pinnacle of societal wisdom, knowledge, good character. And so what happens then is everything that they've done in the dark, and they're still doing in the dark, is shoved in the closet. And then one day, the closet opens up and there are skeletons that just come rushing out. And so you can imagine society drops them.
They get crucified by the media.
Very crucified.
Corporations say you can no longer endorse our products.
Yeah.
But just because you're human now.
So the difference, the fourth point I'm making is that the difference with Christian ministry is that there is only one who's the pinnacle of virtue, pinnacle of wisdom, of knowledge. Everybody knows that. It is Christ Jesus. He is the perfect man. Now, Jordan Peterson makes the point when people say, look, I've got these friends, but I might save them. Because, Jesus did hang out with the prostitutes and tax collectors. And it's like, yes, but Jesus is not you. He was the archetype of a perfect man.
Yeah.
So you are not. Yeah. And so Apostle Paul makes this point over and over again. The man of the statue said, because it was his writing, his presentation, the power of God through his ministry, he always say, I'm the weakest of all. When people in the ministry are faced with someone who starts to uphold them, put them up to become the pinnacle of virtue, do not accept that. You know you're not. You know that you are just as much a sinner who has received the grace of Christ, and you are walking alongside the people that are walking with you. So just tell them, be honest and open with yourself and with them.
Yes.
I'm a human being. I want to point you to Christ, and all of us, we are headed toward Him. He is the only example we follow.
Yeah.
And in that sense, you avoid these extremes.
Sure.
So avoid the extreme of now thinking, oh, I'm the big shot.
Yeah.
And with that, you will live a natural life, a sort of natural life. So the thing I can say is, this has broken my heart most of the times, is that the people who all the because Christians do this, just watch and see a church minister stumble. Let him stumble and watch who are the first people who are going to crucify him. Because these people have got scriptures. They should know better. He should know better. He should be repentant. He should be able to accept whatever fallout, whatever. The person who has repented.
I got to say, some ministers stumbling is entirely predictable.
Right.
You can. There are some people who are so, I guess, feeding on the fame. Feeding on, basking in the glory.
Yeah.
That and treating people badly in the process, because if malevolence manifests itself in all areas of human activity.
Exactly.
That's one of the things I like about Jordan Peterson, and he's under no illusion about the goodness of man. He sees the heart of man for what it is, that we're innately sinful.
Yeah.
And it manifests in religious circles as well. And sometimes you see a man and you think, well, look, I hope he changes trajectory, because if he remains on this trajectory, it's very clear what's going to happen. And you can see, sometimes you can see the train wreck coming years in advance. I pray for people like that. But,
it's like, before you jump to the next thought, so you look at it, and the person who wants to bask in the glory has pretty much just fallen into their own personal delusion. There is the difference between being a Christian, as it is now culturally, I'm a Christian. It means I go to church. Okay. The word Christian meant Christ-like. Okay. And so I understand when Jordan Peterson says, now there's no one who's Christ-like apart from Christ himself. So I get that. It's to say we all walking toward there. Even though when someone says, our church minister, what? Is that just the guy who stands in the pulpit and give a sermon? But you've got to be able to sort of look at, to go, how did Christ act faced with glory? When he did miracles and so on and so forth, people wanted to, we want to make him king. He just took off. It disappeared. It disappeared. How did the apostles like Paul deal with this personal glory? They got to Ephesus, and as the miracles start to show up, people start to go, it must be in Lystra. The gods have showed up here in human form. And Paul and Barnabas tore their clothes. They're like, hey, we are human beings like you. We're not God. We don't receive glory. Even the angels are smart enough to not receive glory. John wanted to worship an angel and to say, hey, I'm a brother like you. Any human being, church minister or not, see why it's really dangerous to the Pope. Any human being who think that they can, while in this human form, take the glory of God, being praised and glorified about. This is why even the celebrity culture is so bad and toxic.
Yeah.
They are idols, they're celebrities, and we look up. I'm not saying
it's interesting. You can understand the heart of mankind being what it is. For people to want to be in the glory, you to want to bask in the glory. You know, that so clearly is a manifestation of pride. But what's equally sort of dark and malevolent is the fact that people want to worship idols, that people want to put others up there on the platform and sort of push them forward and I think it's about abdicating responsibility for one's own life. You know, I don't have to be heroic if I can celebrate another hero.
Okay. Yep.
I don't have to be, deal with the complexity of life and attain success if I just celebrate someone else's success.
Yeah. I can see it's the complexness of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that there's sort of even dark and twisted motives in having heroes.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about people who inspire us.
Yeah.
Because somebody you can be inspired by somebody and want to follow in their steps because they've somehow mapped a way through those complexities in a way that makes it clear and liberating for me.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing is good, but this blind adulation is something.
But you said something profound there. Look at, we're not talking about people who, for the sake of making good decisions and living, stumbling and getting up and becoming an inspiration for others. And those who are inspired by them must simply follow their example rather than worship their person. Following someone's example is different from worshiping their person. And so even God himself, even Christ, for him to call us to where he was, he came and he was here with us. He was, the Bible says he was like us in all respects. He was hungry, he cried, I like the story in the Garden of Gethsemane where he says, my heart is troubled. Some versions translate it, I am depressed. I'm troubled because it's going to go to the cross. So we've seen him suffer. And him who was perfect, when someone came to him and called him good teacher, good rabbi, what should I do to inherit the kingdom of God? He said, no one is good but God. You see, he wanted to say to the man, you know me as a man, right? A rabbi, a person. And you want to say to me, good? No. Only God is perfectly good. We all human beings, if you look at me as a man, we have to navigate the imperfection of man, even though he was a perfect man. So that we can understand that if you're a human being, do not fall into the trap of being looked at as though you are the perfect God.
So we've talked about how some people have false motives in relationships, because they want to be around people who are just as bad as them, so they don't have to lift their standards. Peterson also talks about the twisted motives, even in compassion and the desire to save others, which we touched on. But I have seen this so clearly in the realm of international development,
right?
Because I went to Africa and was partnered with some brethren in Uganda to start a project for orphans. We thought it'd be good to do some good things, and it brought me into this sort of international development community. And when my own project shut down because when the project we began shut down because some of my partners had a lapse of integrity. I was asked to be an advisor for another organisation working in Uganda, and I went to Uganda once with the founders and assessed things, and then I went back by myself and I uncovered some things that were quite disturbing, and I wrote an email back saying we need to have a board meeting to discuss these problems. What had happened was the Ugandan partner had been being instructed to misappropriate money that he'd received from a different donor source, and that was just not on them.
Yeah.
And I thought innocently, naively, I thought we'd come back, we'd have a round the table discussion, and we'd put it right, and we'd go on to do good things. But what had happened was I discovered something that I'd never encountered before, and I've subsequently seen a lot of, is that this individual who had founded this organisation had done so, I discovered, out of as much seeking to validate herself rather than care for the people she was dealing with. And when I began to present information that she perceived to be threatening to her virtue and her power base, she responded by telling lies to the rest of the board. So I showed up to this board meeting like a lamb to the slaughter, and the first point on the agenda was terminating my position on the board, which lasted about 5 minutes. And I was so perplexed by that. I'm thinking, why wouldn't you want to make your project better? Why would you? Why would you do something so malevolent? And I subsequently, different members of that organisation lasted about 6 months before it self-destructed. But and you could see it. And in my parting words were, mark my words, you can shoot the messenger, but this is going to come back and bite you. And it did, and that organisation ceased to exist. But the thing that I have seen subsequently, as I went back to Africa many times after that, was that a lot of do-gooding is tainted and polluted by these very mixed motives, and that some people can say, well, I love people, or I love children, or I love orphans, or I want to help. It's not that easy to actually help people in poverty, because you've got to look at the causes, and you've got to have creative solutions that are appropriate to the economic context you're dealing with. And just throwing money in. There's a kind of blind compassion where it's totally self-serving. And in this case, this characteristic I encountered, to my surprise, was pathological. It was damaging on so many levels. Not just to the individuals who were there, but to the organisation itself.
So I think you look at it to go, having been myself, from my background, interacting with foreign aid, in one level or the other, in one shape or the other, you'll probably be shocked to hear me say that I'm not really a big proponent. I'm not a proponent of foreign aid. I don't really support the idea of foreign aid.
But you wouldn't be opposed to economic development?
Strategic economic development, the definitions need to be provided and clarification be made. Let's, looking from the point that Jordan Peterson makes, if you're going to try and help someone, don't you want to check first that they would like to get out of the situation they're in first?
Yeah, it says, before you help someone, you should find out why that person is in trouble.
Yeah. So you want to find out why they're in trouble. Then you want to find out, do actually they want to get out of here?
Yeah.
What has happened very often with foreign aid and this sort of this is my philosophical analysis of the attitudes, especially from the West. And then we'll look at it from that macro point of view, and then micro will come to the micro point of view. There's been, for some reason, what makes Jordan Peterson, myself, I take the view, a very negative view of life, a negative view of human nature. There was this pursuit of the affirmation that we are good people because we're doing good things, we're helping that person who is, weak, and that person is struggling. And if I do this, I will be viewed as a good person. See, the drive is basically inward looking. I'm a good person. If I gave a little bit to charity, then I'll feel good about myself. Yes. And not only that, it actually mixes up with your view of soteriology. The people who think, if you're a humanist, do good things so that, there'll be something good about you. People will remember you for your good deeds. So that's the humanist part of it. Eastern religions, I'll do good things so that you will have a positive karma. Okay, it's still salvation by work, soteriology. Or do good things so that when it comes to the end of the day, Allah will put it in. God will put it in the balance, and then your good deeds will be outweighing your bad deeds, and you get to heaven. That's the Islamic view of goodness. Very, very different from the Christian point of view, which says no one is good, not even one single one. And all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. That's the view that Jordan Peterson espoused. That's the views I had, and that's the views that Jesus had. From that point of view, the goods you do are not meant to validate you. The good you do it as a response and obedience to the greater good. That's God.
So where does compassion come from?
So, compassion is putting oneself in the other person's shoes.
Or remembering where you came from yourself.
Yes, so in other words, you could actually remember where you came from. But you see when you said it, you came from there, you're no longer there. And then to try to pull the person that you have compassion over, pull them from there. The Bible says Jesus walked, he saw people that were like sheep without a shepherd. They had compassion, and then he did what? He healed them. So your compassion is meaningful so long as it gets the person out of where they are. That's number one. But for what motive? See, Scripture says, whatever you do, let it be to the glory of the greater good. That's God. The good is not in me. I am not doing good. I was shocked. At the church, I tend to say this. I say, I don't love people just so that I could feel good about me. I don't love people so because, he's such a great guy, he loves people. No, I don't think there's a lot of things that are lovable about people, including me. I love people because I love God, and God is love. He shares his love in my heart, and then I love people. So that I can't give myself a kick. Oh, look at me. I loved all those people. I'm such a great guy. No. If it is doing good for greater good, and I look at foreign aid, Western countries have thrown billions and billions and billions of dollars to African countries, poor countries.
And often the outcome has been harmful.
It feeds corruption big time.
On my first trip to Africa, I happened to stay with this guy. He was in the travel industry, and this in Harare, and I stayed with his family in my first couple of nights in Africa on my very first trip. And he told me how they used to do tours in Ethiopia before all the foreign aid went into Ethiopia. And basically his perspective was that foreign aid had destroyed the country. I visited Ethiopia, and then I went to Eritrea, which was it was sort of, at one point, it was an independent country, then it got annexed and it was part of Ethiopia after World War II. But because the communist government was in power, and because the Eritrean government, because the Ethiopian government didn't want foreign aid organizations helping the Eritreans, it was this one part of the country that was exempt from receiving foreign aid. And I went to Ethiopia, then I went to Eritrea, and essentially they're very, very similar people. They intermarry, it's different language, but, you know, they live beside each other for so long. But the stark differences I had was I would go somewhere in Ethiopia and I would have children come up to me and they'd learnt a little bit of English. And they would, this child about this big came up and said, "I'm a university student, please give me money," which was something that had been learnt, obviously. She said it beautifully, in beautiful English, probably the only thing she could say in English.
So I'm a university student,
But
give me some money.
She gives some money. She was about, I don't know, 4 years old.
You would have liked university students.
But they'd obviously had learnt that any foreigner was a source of easy money, and the whole nation had become a nation of beggars everywhere we went.
Yeah,
to Ethiopia.
creates dependency.
We'd stop on the side of the road and people would come to the car with their hands stretched out. Go to Ethiopia, just across Eritrea, just across the border. Completely different. Same looking people, same.
But they were not begging
culture.
for money now.
They were fiercely independent. And there's an inspirational story of how after the war they wanted to rebuild their railway line, and the European countries had offered them billions of dollars to build a brand new railway, because the whole railway had been bombed and they pulled up the railway line to build bomb shelters, and the Eritrean government said, the new Eritrean government said, you know, there's no way we could ever pay that back. Forget it. We're doing it ourselves. Yeah. And what they did was they pulled apart all the bomb shelters. They straightened out the railway lines. They pulled these old men out of retirement who knew how to work on steam trains and taught young people how. And they built a whole railway line themselves independently. Yeah. I'd never seen anything like that anywhere in Africa, because this small sector had been isolated from harmful foreign aid. Now, I'm not as cynical about. No, I am cynical about foreign aid. What am I saying? I believe that there is a place for foreign aid.
Yeah.
But in fact, I think there's a moral imperative to engage in aid and development.
Right.
But how to do it without hurting people is not a simple process.
Yeah, it's like, as I was saying, it's not that I don't, you know, there are places where foreign aid is, you know, done great good. That's because, you know, to be balanced on the question. But generally, like if you you do case studies, foreign aid has created, number one, dependency. Number two, has encouraged corruption in Africa. And so the case where you've had, you know, success, either you have had conscientious leaders there, or the situation was assessed correctly, so the people were willing, they're happy to come out of the situation they were in, and therefore, so like what Jordan Peterson said, if you check why a person is in that situation, are they willing to come? He says he had people who had mandated, you know, help back from him for his work as a psychologist, and he said it was a travesty, it never worked. So if people were willing to come out of that situation, and then you provided the help, it works. But the problem with foreign aid is both sides of the issue have got issues. So you know, we send it. Right now, our politicians would rather send foreign aid there so that we can say we're nice people. We actually do say we're helping those poor people over there, and the poor people are like, just give us money, and so they can't do anything for themselves. And every day there's also this sort of dependency. Instead of a hand up, it's sort of a hand out. Just here you go. So there are places where it has worked, but generally foreign aid has not been very helpful. 50, 60, 70 years after the independence of Africa, Africa is still, many of you ask, it's easy to have these conversations here among Westerners. If you sit with Africans like me, when we talk about these things among ourselves, we tell you, Africa's still struggling big time.
Some people say things were better before independence.
Well, I wouldn't say strictly that. there will be good aspects and bad aspects.
Mm.
One of the things that was not good is that the colonizer was not a democrat. That has hurt Africa big time.
Mm.
We never learned democracy from the colonizer. Colonizer was a taskmaster. He was a dictator. We've had dictators in Africa. One reason for having dictators is because the Africans watched the colonizer being a dictator. So once he got government, that's what he knew what to do.
But the problem is sometimes independence has brought local tyrants into power as opposed to a foreign tyrant.
Exactly,
So,
because the local tyrant watched the foreign tyrant do it. So, but coming back to where we were, you and I, when we sit, we could sort of chat. And so
I think we better wrap it up soon.
Yeah.
We've probably gone way over time.
I was looking at some of the few things to write down. I carry this as principles for myself as I navigate the life, and as I'm reading Jordan Peterson, I could hear those echoing in his writing. Number one is you cannot rescue a person with whom you are in the same situation unless you either have gotten out of there and want to get him out, or you and them together decide to sit for the solution to your problem and fight hard to move in the same direction. If you sit and build a pity party, it does not work. So that's number one. So when I start friendship, I want to go, okay, is this person ahead of me? What is the value this person brings in my world? And what is the value I bring in this person's world? See, this must be a reciprocal arrangement. And if that's the case, then I'm happy to engage in friendship. I don't engage in social friendship just for the sake of having our presence and get together. I'm not a lonely person. I'm not looking for friendship just based on, oh, I just want a body to talk to. There are friendships who are like that. You know, I just want somebody to talk to. So you end up a friendship. And then whatever bad they have, the toxicity starts. The second thing, I have a principle that you cannot save someone that you are imprisoned by. What do I mean by that? Someone whose weaknesses, whose faults you can't talk about to them. You can't say, hey, look, that's bad. You can't be doing that. Surely. No, man, look, like, change your life. This is bad. If you have a friend to whom you cannot say those words, you're terrified because of the threat of social rejection. If I tell them what I see is wrong, they're going to walk away from me. They shouldn't have been your friend in the first place. And so you cannot be a friend, you cannot not have a friend who doesn't correct you, who doesn't disagree with you, who doesn't challenge you. That person is no friend. Like, I want to know if I have a friend, can they see me doing the wrong thing and say, hey, Samuel, man, that's wrong. You don't do that. And I want to have a friend who would stop me if I am hot-headedly headed toward the wrong direction. I don't want just a friend who affirm me. Like, we've got this concept in our culture.
I look upon the friendships that I've had over the years, and the most solid and enduring ones are the ones that we can have very honest and frank discussions about, not just the things we agree on, but the things we disagree on, and agree to disagree if need be, and maintain the respect. You know? So it's been, we've gone a bit over time. I hope there are people interested enough to watch the full video, but I think there's some things that we've discussed that are valuable to people, and so for those who are watching, still the minority of you probably, thank you for watching, and thank you, Samuel, for coming back and continuing this. It's been a good conversation, and sort of been stirred to not only read what Jordan Peterson has written and reflect on it and so on and so forth. So thanks for inviting me. Yeah, a pleasure. And 3 down, 9 more to go. Okay. Okay. Thanks. Thanks so much. Okay. Bye.